What's up, you guys? Josh Tongla here. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the most powerful manifestation techniques that I've ever learned. Straight up, it's a technique that one of my favorite teachers, Neville Goddard, talked a lot about back in the day, which so happens to be something that I learned somewhere else, to be honest. But discovering his work several years ago, it gave me a real sense of appreciation for it because I know how effective it is, especially because it was one of the main techniques that helped heal my body back in the early 2000s, so you don't want to miss this. Alright, so when it comes to manifestation, I see a lot of people getting so caught up with saying a bunch of affirmations or doing this or that technique, and they're struggling because they don't seem to be working. But as I've said before, we eventually want to feel the feeling of having that thing or that experience we want. So the question is, how do we get there? How do we create that feeling or that shift in our consciousness? And so in order to learn how to control reality, you guys, you gotta at the very least understand how reality is created in the first place. And what I love about Neville was his main teaching that he was mostly known for, and it's that we create our reality through imagining. He always talked about what he liked to call our wonderful human imagination, because through our imagination, all things are possible. But what sucks is that most people are totally unaware of this, dude. But the fact that you're watching this video right now means that you can help spread this message to help wake some people up so they can be empowered too, you know what I'm saying? Thing is, most people are so afraid to imagine themselves having the things they want, doing the things they want to do. And it's sad, because not only do they think they don't deserve it, but their senses also seem to deny the possibility of it all, or they seem to accept the quote-unquote facts instead of the truth. There's a story of Neville that's found in his book and in his lectures that I want to share as an intro to this technique. So, in 1943, Neville was drafted into the US Army in his late 30s, which he didn't want because he felt like he was too old to become a soldier, and he also had a wife and daughter at home to take care of. And so he wanted to get out, but only in an honorable way. So he had to apply for a discharge. But keep in mind that based on Army regulations, the decision of the commanding officer was final and couldn't be appealed. But he still went for it. He applied for the discharge, and within 4 hours, the application was returned and marked disapproved. And Neville said nothing, and the captain felt bad for him because he knew Neville wanted to be with his family. And since Neville couldn't appeal to any higher authority, what did he do? Here's what Neville did. He then turned within to his own consciousness, determined to rely on what he referred to as the law of assumption. Now, what is that? He centered his imagination in the feeling of the wish already fulfilled. The feeling of the wish already fulfilled, because he realized that his consciousness was the only reality, and that his particular state of consciousness determined the events he'd encounter. So that night he went to bed and induced a state bordering on sleep. And in his imagination, in his mind's eye, listen, he literally felt that he was in his own apartment back in New York City, and he mentally pictured each of the familiar rooms with all the furnishings where they were so vividly real, and lying flat on his back with all these things clearly visualized. He then assumed, he felt that he was in his own room, lying in his own bed, which would be a very different feeling from lying on an army cot, right? Then still using his imagination, he got up, he went from room to room, touching various pieces of furniture and saw other familiar places, and then he went back to bed and felt himself drifting off to sleep. Now, what's important to remember is that he fell asleep with his consciousness filled with the assumption that he was already where he wanted to be, which is not being in the army, but instead being at home with his family. And he did this night after night for 8 nights, using his imagination, feeling himself to be honorably discharged and back in his home in New York City. Then not too long after, he was ordered to report to the colonel's office and was asked if he still wanted out. And when he said yeah, the colonel still disagreed and even gave him all the reasons why he should still be in the army. But check this out, the colonel decided to approve it anyway. And within a few hours, folks, the application was approved. And Neville got on a train and headed towards home. Boom. So what Neville saw in his imagination eventually became his reality. Cool, so let me break this technique down for you. Okay, so the first thing you do is you gotta know exactly what you want. Know what you want. Don't be afraid to want things or to have fun experiences or whatever, you guys. It's okay to enjoy life. But don't stop there. Because Neville said that when you know what you want, that's not enough. because you're only thinking of your desire. What you want to do, here's a game changer, is think from it. Thinking of your desire versus thinking from it. Big difference. Because when you're thinking from it, you're experiencing the feeling of your wish already fulfilled. As he like to say, living in the end. And so as you're going to sleep, when you're in a more drowsy state, like the hypnagogic state, it's where you're half asleep and half awake. It's that small window right before knocking out. At that moment, you think of your desire. It could be anything. And you imagine yourself actually there, experiencing whatever it is you want to experience. So if you're sick or in pain right now, in your mind's eye, how would you imagine yourself completely healthy and pain-free? What would you do? What would you say? What would you see? How would you act? And then in your imagination, you would do those things. So for example, when I suffered from my back problems and from an extreme case of GERD several years ago, I didn't just see myself walking, okay? Nah, dude, I saw myself running. I saw myself with a strong back, carrying all the things I usually couldn't carry because of all the pressure it would put on my spine. And I'd imagine myself eating all the foods I loved, all the foods I wasn't supposed to eat because of my condition. And many of you know the story of my healing. And if you don't, just look for it on my channel where I talked about healing myself. Or let's say you're struggling with money right now. You can imagine yourself getting a promotion at work and visualizing people shaking your hand. How would you feel? Or seeing a lot of money deposited into your bank account, or you giving a lot of money away to friends and family. You create the script. Just keep it short and on repeat. Just loop it. No need to complicate it. And when you're doing this, make your vision so clear and so vivid, not like watching it far away on a movie screen, but you're actually in it, like a first person point of view, using all your five senses where you see, you touch, you taste, you smell, you hear. Feel it yourself into it until you give it, as Neville used to say, all the tones of reality. And that's why creating the feeling you want isn't as hard as some people think it is. Because when you're using your imagination, you end up getting so absorbed in it where the feelings just follow. And you begin feeling the reality of it all. Because your brain can't tell the difference, you guys. You might even catch yourself smiling, which is a good indicator that you're feeling the feeling. And while all this is happening, you fall asleep with your consciousness filled with your assumption. And then boom, that's where the magic happens. And you do this every day. Trust me, from my own experience, your subconscious mind will notice the feeling of the desire already fulfilled. And it's amazing because the universe will do some strange things, dude, and your quote unquote physical reality will eventually match it and line up. I've seen this work in my life countless times. You guys, let me be straight up with you. The abundant life is yours to enjoy now. Not tomorrow. Is that only for other people, but it's also for you. I want you to believe that. Know that you're deserving and that you can receive the desires of your heart, for goodness sake. Stop doubting yourself. I want you to experience the more that your heart desires. That's my desire for you. That's why I make these videos. Let go of the struggle. Let go of the lies that you are not enough. You are enough. Try this method out tonight and you will prove that this stuff stinking works because you will get what you believe. Yeah. Alrighty guys, hope you enjoyed this. Please like and share it. And when you try this technique, I'd love to hear about your results in the comments below. Hit subscribe or that follow button wherever you're watching for new videos. And don't forget to register for my free online training on manifesting the life you want. The link's in the description. Like I always say, more's coming. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.